Nearly a century ago, in the heart of the Mongolian wilderness, a legend was born. He was a man who would go on to become one of the most feared men of all time. During his lifetime, he conquered a quarter of the Earth's population and slaughtered 40 million people while he did it. His name was Ghengis Khan. But while Khan was a great conqueror, his methods of attack were brutal. He often boiled his victims alive, or even catapulted plague-infected corpses into cities to rapidly spread disease. And if these gruesome facts weren't enough, stick around as we uncover the truth of his unrelenting legacy and how he was able to wipe out 10% of the world population in under 20 years. This is the legend of Ghengis Khan. But every legend has its beginnings, and Ghengis Khan was no exception. Our story starts in the unforgiving landscapes of Mongolia. In the early 12th century, that a child named Temujin was born into a world of hardship and turmoil. His life quickly took a turn for the worse when his father, a respected chieftain, was brutally murdered when Temujin was just a young boy. This left his mother in a daunting situation as she now had to look after her 7 children by herself. This is when the brutal leadership of Temujin began to show. When he was 14 years old, he caught a fish to feed his family. But his half-brother Berta stole the fish, and without sharing it with any of his 6 siblings and mother, he alone devoured it. This lit a fire of rage in the heart of young Temujin, who shot and killed Berta for his actions. This was the spark that lit the flame for the destruction he would eventually cause. You see, it was in the crucible of these hardships that Temujin's ruthless spirit began to take shape. In the face of hardships, he developed the resilience, cunning, and determination that would come to define his character. As he matured, Temujin began to assemble a band of loyal followers, bound together by a common vision of unity and strength. Through shrewd alliances and clever maneuvering, Temujin managed to unite the warring Mongol tribes that had long been at each other's throats. In a stunning turn of events, this once vulnerable boy became the undeniable leader of a growing Mongol confederation. It was at this point that Temujin's ascent to power would be sealed. In a momentous ceremony, he was granted the title of Ghengis Khan, which translates to universal ruler or oceanic leader. With this new title came a destiny that would reshape not only Mongolia, but the entire course of world history. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because the legend of this fierce conqueror was only just beginning to take shape. Within the next few years, he would solidify his place as the most fearsome leader ever, and embark on thrilling journeys leaving pure destruction in his wake. But beneath this brutality lay a strategic genius that reshaped the world. This military genius was marked by a combination of innovation, strategy, and discipline. His most iconic element of warfare was the cavalry. The Mongol horse archers were a relentless and highly mobile force, unmatched in their ability to strike swiftly and retreat, showering their enemies with deadly arrows from horseback. But it wasn't just their mobility that made the Mongol cavalry formidable. Ghengis Khan was a pioneer in military organization. He divided his forces into units, each with specific roles, and trained extensively in their respective skills. One of his key tactics was known as the feigned retreat. Ghengis Khan's warriors would pretend to flee from battle, luring enemy forces into a pursuit. Once the enemy was exhausted and disorganized, the Mongols would turn and strike, often with devastating results. This level of discipline and coordination is what set them apart and allowed Mongol forces to easily dominate the enemy. But Ghengis Khan had many more tricks up his sleeve. He greatly understood the psychological aspect of warfare, and he utilized these tactics to confuse his enemies. For example, he was known for creating massive dust clouds before battles, making his army appear much larger than it actually was, adding to the fear and uncertainty of his foes. And although these tactics proved to be a potent weapon, I myself began to question the effectiveness of this strategy. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think this was a good idea? Or do you think this strategy was a waste of time? Furthermore, Khan was also a master of information warfare. His intelligence network allowed him to gather vital information about his enemies, their weaknesses, and their strategies. He often knew his adversaries better than they knew themselves, adding to his advantage. But his thirst for conquest knew no limits, and his brilliant strategies and unyielding determination led to the rapid expansion of the Mongol Empire. The vastness of the territories he conquered is nothing short of staggering. Although his campaign began small, with the unification of the Mongol tribes, he had much grander ambitions. He turned his gaze southward, setting his sights on northern China. With his formidable cavalry forces and innovative tactics, he swiftly seized control of Chinese territories. From there, Khan's pursuit turned westward. He launched a relentless campaign into Central Asia, where the Khwarezm Empire stood as a formidable obstacle. Despite the enormous human and economic costs, his forces pushed through, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The Mongol Empire continued to expand like a tidal wave, engulfing vast regions of the Middle East, Persia, and beyond. His rule reshaped the geopolitical landscape of Eurasia, stretching from the shores of the Caspian Sea to the borders of Eastern Europe. It was under his command that the largest contiguous land empire in history came into existence. From China to Persia, and from Russia to the Middle East, his dominion spanned a staggering 9 million square miles, and he ruled over a quarter of the world's population. But while Ghengis Khan's conquests were marked by brilliance and innovation, they were also stained by unimaginable brutalities and ruthless tactics. His campaigns were a symphony of terror, with each movement more harrowing than the last. One of the most brutal episodes in Ghengis Khan's campaign was the siege of Nishapur, a prosperous city in Iran, in 1221. The Mongol warriors unleashed a reign of terror that haunts history to this day. In their conquest of Nishapur, they laid waste to approximately 1.7 million people. The city's streets, once teeming with life, were transformed into rivers of blood. The scale of the massacre was so staggering that it's difficult to fathom. Ghengis Khan's forces left behind 3 mountains of skulls from the victims of Nishapur, and even murdered the cats and dogs found in the city. He made it clear to his generals that he wanted nothing to survive. But his terror didn't stop there. Another dark chapter in Ghengis Khan's conquests was the campaign against the Khwarezm Empire in Central Asia. This ill-fated conflict began with the death of Mongol ambassadors, and it unleashed a devastating spiral of violence that rippled across the region. Ghengis Khan's response was merciless. His forces employed a scorched earth policy, systematically burning down all the enemy's crops and infrastructure. They then encamped themselves on the outskirts of the cities, cutting off all escape routes. The inhabitants of the city then faced an impossible choice: either hide behind the city walls and endure a slow, agonizing death by starvation, or attempt escape and face certain death at the hands of the Mongols. It was a horrific strategy that left no room for mercy or compromise. But if that wasn't brutal enough, perhaps one of the most gruesome aspects of Ghengis Khan's tactics was his use of biological warfare. During sieges, the Mongol forces catapulted plague-infected corpses into besieged cities. The result was the rapid spread of disease and death among the inhabitants. It was a horrifying example of the inhumane measures employed to weaken enemy defenses, plunging entire populations into unimaginable suffering and agony. The Mongol conquests under Ghengis Khan were not only characterized by military genius, but also by a brutality that defied imagination. His relentless pursuit of victory knew no bounds, and it left an indelible mark on history. His tactics, though ruthless, were instrumental in expanding the Mongol Empire, instilling fear into the hearts of those who stood in his path. Do you think he is justified for his actions in order to expand his beloved country? Or do you think his ruthless tactics were taken too far? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, I know you will love these as well. So click right here to indulge in more thought-provoking content. I'll see you there.